the fight, yeah, bring on all the lightning. 'Cause I'm looking for a hero. Look inside the mirror, I found one. Oh, carry the hurt when it gets too hard. Pick it up, dust it off.
So to set the stage here, oftentimes we as individuals, we as women, we as human beings, we endure so many things and so much in our lives. And what I've learned is that transparency and vulnerability is a huge, huge catalyst to actually helping the healing. What I've learned in my own personal life is that healing through the hurt is not only something that helps, but it is an absolute must. My story of hurt began in my childhood. To define my level of hurt is immeasurable. Molestation, assault, rape, physical abuse, low self-esteem, promiscuity, poor self-image of myself, lack of direction, helplessness, hopelessness, leading to a false understanding of who I am, who I was, and who I was created to be. All of these things were catalysts to cause me to endure a hurt that we are taught in this society does not hold any value. And what I've found in enduring these things and enduring the hurt is that, number one, I'm human. And I've had to go through a series of obstacles to find who I am and to be exactly who I was created to be. My vulnerability and my level of transparency has been born out of the things that I've endured. Oftentimes we've been taught to silence our voice and to just continue to push through and be strong and to just not deal with the hurt. All of those things that I endured from my childhood on through my adulthood began to set up a level of self-hatred within myself. And it wasn't until I learned to deal with what needed to heal on the inside of myself that the true healing began. And what I want to do here is to no longer allow the significance of the sound of my voice to be silenced, to tell my own story in a way that is real, to tell my own story in a way that is valuable, to tell my own story in a way that is tangible, and to tell my own story with the utmost of transparency. I've learned to tell my story because many times in life and enduring the things I've gone through and coming to a place of sharing with others or my abuser, so to speak, speaking up for me, I've learned to take the power of my own story and utilize that as a platform to give voice myself. All of these things are what have shaped me to become the woman that I am, and they've given me the purpose defined, a purpose that I seek to use to liberate as many as possible, to help to begin to heal as many as possible. And just in doing this on this platform, healing through the hurt is something that we all have to realize that is where true healing starts at. So as a child, going through the things that I endured, being molested, most children don't understand what's happening, what's going on. We're too young to comprehend that. So at the time of that, it took literally about 7 years into my middle and high school years to realize that what had been done to me was wrong. When I got the courage to speak up about it, I was basically told I was a liar, which was something that was very hard to deal with, coming from a situation where you realize that what you've endured or what's been done to you, number one, was wrong. Number two, you feel violated. And as a child, I don't think you have the full comprehension to understand that violation. And as I matured into a young adult and going to my mother to let her know what had happened, to be told that I was a liar, to be denied that the sanctity of safety from my mom, from the one who birthed me, from the one who nurtures, the one who gives protection, the one who's supposed to comfort and support and protect, to feel as if I was being denied that, put me on a pathway to psychological destruction, is what I would like to call it. It set the stage and it set the platform for all of those things that I spoke of. Low self-esteem, because if you go to someone that is supposed to be the image and the epitome of strength and courage and wisdom to you, and that person denies you, then it tells you you're less. It tells you you're not enough. It tells you you're not desirable, you're not wanted, you're not worthy. And that set the stage for what I believe was my low self-esteem. To add insult to injury, my abuser was my stepfather. And I had to grow up in this household with all of these tags or labels to myself, as well as trying to process through the hurt, trying to process my understanding of what and why this abuse had happened, trying to process why my mother did not believe me and denied that this could have possibly ever happened, but also having to live in a household with my abuser who, in short, treated me as nothing. This added to my personal view of who I was and how I was to carry myself, because now you took away the father figure factor. So I now have no self-esteem. I now have no confidence in a mother figure, and I now have no role model, no positive male role model. I responded to that initially in a place and in a state of, as still a young child, responded in a way of confusion. And that confusion was met with even more just denial. And that denial turned into anger on my part, and that anger turned into rebellion. So my responses, there were a plethora of ways that I responded to the abuse, to the hurt. Many times as a child, children, and many times as youth or as women or even adults, we don't particularly know how to process things like that. And oftentimes when we are short on the words to exhibit what we're feeling internally, externally, we begin to act out, rebel, anger, frustration. I ran away. I became promiscuous because, again, I started lacking a father figure. And the first individual, the first man to show me some sort of attention or time or what I thought was love was where my energy went and was spent. And you just add that to the low self-esteem, you add that to the denial, you add that to the lack of acceptance, and it began to shape the woman that I was.
Bringing out the fight, yeah, bring on all the lightning. 'cause I.
So the journey of self-construction, reconstruction, stemming from the fact that I was headed down a path of self-destruction, really truly began, and I don't want people to miss this, with my personal journey, because everyone's journey is different. Everyone's journey is personal. Everyone's experience is their experience. It is your experience. What I endured was my experience. What you may be going through or have gone through is your experience, and no one can take that away from you. No one can tell you what measures you need to take to heal. No one can tell you how long you need to take to heal. No one can tell you what your healing looks like. However, what I had to realize, and what I encourage everyone to hear as we deal with healing through the hurt, is that my path to reconstruction had to start with self. No one can do that for you. No one could do that for me. I was very angry when I think back on all the things I endured and everything that I went through. And I look back at my life, I was a very angry individual. We've heard the term or the phrase, hurt people hurt people. And while I was always very friendly, easy to communicate with, I internally was self-destructing, drinking, partying, the promiscuity. I had no clue what a good, healthy relationship looked like. And it wasn't until, for me personally, I found faith. I found a relationship with God. I found a relationship with Jesus Christ. Because at the point that I was in my life, I was really good with putting on that smile, putting on that front, holding my head up high like everything was okay, because I was taught that seed of my mother denying that it happened told me that it did not happen. And me growing up in a household where no one acknowledged what had happened taught me psychologically to view it as it didn't happen. You put it to the recesses of your mind and you don't deal with it. And so as I grew up, I thought that being strong meant you just push it to the side and you don't deal with it. And it wasn't until I learned that dealing with it was the only way to heal from it. And I'd gotten really good with shutting people out. I got really good with putting up a facade and a front for what I thought people wanted to see, and how I thought people wanted Takiya to be, and how I thought people wanted me to talk or look or dress or act. And I carried this. But what I was really good at was, in my faith, I found that at the end of the day, when I went home and I was alone, the only one there was God. Whether he was real or not, I was going to find out. I had nothing. I had no one else. I trusted no one. I trusted no one else. So resorting to God was my safe space. It was a safe place. And it caused me to self-reflect. It caused me to spend time looking at myself to get to the root of who I was and why I had become who I was. And healing starts there. It starts with looking at who you are. See, whatever the abuse is that you've gone through, you may have been abused. You may have been molested, raped, assaulted, abused. What can't be taken from you is your ability to heal. You are in control of that. You are in charge of that. And that is what I had to realize, is that my purpose stems from the power of my story. That can't be taken away from me. That cannot be misused or abused when I understand the value of my vulnerability and the truth of my own testimony. And self-healing began with just that, with looking at self and realizing that I would no longer allow the power to be given to my abusers, but that I would take that power back and turn it into something purposeful to help others, to help myself. And that is what I do. There's a very profound story to the entrance of me becoming who I was created to be. I shared this in a past episode, how my children and I ended up homeless after escaping an abusive relationship. And after this relationship, in order to get on my feet, get a roof over our head, food on the table, I entered the beauty industry. In doing so, the beauty industry, there's a scripture that comes to mind that God says He will give you beauty for ashes. And I certainly, at this point in my time, had gone through just the fire with everything I'd endured and had no idea the plan that God had for my life. In entering the beauty industry, I met a woman who came into my spa and shared her, she actually did not share her story. She felt comfortable in talking to me. She was in an abusive relationship. And it was interesting because her husband at the time would come to the appointments. He would come to the appointments and was very guarded with her. And at the time, I thought it strange, but as she began to open up, I realized that he was guarding her to make sure that she didn't speak up about what was going on. And at some point in time, after so many visits, he felt comfortable enough to let her come on her own. She decided to share with me some of what she was enduring. I had not shared my story. I was in a phase of tucking away my story, did not realize I even had a story or the potential of it, but quite honestly did not want to breathe a word of what I'd endured in my life to anyone. The profoundness of this woman shared with me what she was enduring, and after about 3 visits, I felt prompted, just God tugging my heart to speak up and tell her, share your story. You've gone through what she's gone through, and she can relate. You can relate. I hesitantly and reluctantly shared the things that I share with you all now with this woman for the first time ever with anyone. And at the end of my divulging my life, what I expected from her was maybe a shrug, maybe silence. But what I got from her were tears in her eyes and so much look of hope on her face when she responded to me, but Takiya, you're okay. And that was the last thing I expected to hear. But what I saw was hope in her face, on her eyes, because it had never occurred to her that this abusive relationship, this unhealthy situation that she was in could end, and that there was hope for someone like her that had gone through what she was going through to get on their feet, to walk away, to start a business, or just to be happy. A year later, I got a call from the same woman. She had divorced that abusive husband. She had moved to Texas, and she started her own business. And I remember feeling such joy and thinking, God, if sharing my story with one person did that, I will tell the world. And it's been an 11-year journey since I first shared my story. And what has been born of that 11 years has been a nonprofit to restorative women's retreats to help heal, an entrepreneurial platform that has offered me the opportunities to become an author and to write devotionals and to speak to women and to help women to heal and to basically just share our stories. Because again, we are taught to tuck it away, to deal with it, to turn the other cheek. And what I've learned to do is that healing through the hurt, again, is the true way to heal. Not everyone has it in them to share their story. Not everyone is called to do that. I understand that. But I am honored to create and to promote and have such phenomenal women on this platform, here on this avenue, that will share stories of hope and help and healing, and to see their truths and their strength and the greatness from within be offered to the world simply by sharing their stories. Want more inspiration and encouragement? Join me next week, Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on Live, and hear more extraordinary women sharing their extraordinary stories. And be inspired with Takiya LaShawn.
Bringing out the fight, yeah, bring on all the lightning. 'Cause I'm looking for a hero, look inside the mirror. I found one, oh, carry the hurt when it gets too hard. Pick it up, dust it off. When I fall down 11, I get up 12. Don't need nobody else. Yeah, I can save myself. Got burned.
And there were pictures of him when he was a little boy in his grandmother's yard, and there were pictures of him with his cousin, and there were pictures of his father, and there were pictures of the family. And there were no pictures of me as a child. There's no pictures of me as a little girl. There's no pictures of my family or the people that I loved. I have none of those in my house. And I thought, why is that? Well, of course I don't matter, number one.
Right.
But number two, every time I look at those pictures of me as that child, I'm reminded of all the story.
Right.
And so you want to push that aside
that
because
aside.
I've got things to do. And I realized the most horrible thing that I have ever let happen to that little girl was me continuing to tell her she does not matter to this day. Because I won't even look at her picture. I won't even put her in my house. The way my husband puts his pictures in the house. So I have dug out her pictures, and she's going in my house because that little girl that lives inside of me to this day needs to hear from someone in authority.
Exactly.
And I am in authority now. That she still matters. And so that little girl that lives, and she lives in all of us. Every single abuse victim keeps that child inside them. And that child needs to be told that she matters.